Holy episode with the one, the only, the man Gronkowski. You've seen it in the title. Chris Gronkowski joined us on the podcast today. He was in the NFL. He's one of the 5 Gronk brothers. He's an absolute incredible human being, an incredible entrepreneur. The notes that I have are insane, and I can't even do them justice. But this episode is loaded with nugget after nugget on how to build a team, how to take culture, how to take lessons from the NFL and use it to make your business profitable, how to literally profit off your passion, how to have tenacity, how to have grit. If you want it, you have to get it. Find a way to do it right, or you're going to be doing it again. The dark side of being a professional athlete. Have you ever created the shared reason for your team to exist? Probably not, and I'd recommend listening to how. Are you preparing yourself to ensure that you win? And if you want to win, there's one thing that you must have, which is a team, because no one wins alone. And this episode is loaded with nugget after nugget that will help you at any stage of your business, from one of the greatest in the world, from one of the most successful families in the world in entrepreneurship and sports. And we break it all down in today's episode. So without further ado, let's get into the show. I know. All right, here we go. Ader, cut off the first part in case you heard me talking about peeing, what you've already heard me talking on the podcast. All right, here we go. 5, 4. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind is Yours show. I feel like today I'm blessed with royalty. That's the only way that I could describe this, because there has to be something that is in this man's blood that spreads genetically through the family. And even though his brother might make fun of him on Jimmy Kimmel, this man's the one who's really winning the game, and he's in a position of power. And so I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend. I'll tell you his name in a minute, but he's done it all. He's done it from professional sports to being an entrepreneur, to being on Shark Tank, to literally taking over the socials, and literally is a walking example, in my opinion, of what an entrepreneur can be. Heart-led, heart-centered, always driven to make a difference, and figuring it out until he does. He's a husband. He's a father. 3 boys, 1 girl on the way. So we got to make the Gronkowski bloodline take over women's sports as well. So it's on the way. And so today I am blessed to have the one, the only Chris Gronkowski. Welcome to the show.
Man, I like it, man. You got to bring up that Jimmy Kimmel diss, though. Come on.
Dude, I saw it and I was like, you're a nicer brother than me, man. I'm like, he went like straight for the jugular. He didn't even answer Jimmy's question. It was like a riff on you the whole time.
Yeah, me and my brother Glenn, man, he just went in hard on us. But you know what? I used it as content, and I posted it. I put a little spin on it, and it's got a couple million views on it, so it's all good.
I loved when I watched it because I saw it, and then I saw your green screen face come on, and I was like, oh, this is so good. So good. I mean, what's it really like? I mean, like, I'm still to this day, like, I'm amazed at your bloodline and like how you figured it out. But like, what's family dinner like around the holidays? Like, is it like a straight up frat house prank war, or is it like a calm general, like, oh, it's so good to catch up as a family?
Yeah, I mean, now, like, man, we haven't ate together as a family in a long time, just because, we were playing different teams and everyone's all over the place now. But, back in the day, it was mayhem, man. Like, my mom would try to cook Thanksgiving Day dinner, and we eat half of it before it wasn't even finished. So everything was all about competitions. We would literally compete over who could eat more, who could eat faster. Every single thing we did every day was some kind of competition. So it was crazy, man. It usually ended up with us, playing some kind of game at some point. Backyard baseball. We played like a mini stick game in the basement. It always ended in a fight. That was it. Like, it was going to end in a brawl every single day, because if you lost, you were pissed, you were going to fight. But if you won, you had to rub it in and make sure they knew that you won. So it just led to a fight every single time.
It's like a reality TV before it existed. Your entire home was designed to bring out the best and worst of everybody, so everybody wins.
Yeah, man. You take 5 boys, and then you also bring in, like, we were the house where all the friends came over too. So it wasn't just us 5; it was us 5 plus a couple friends each, and there's always something going on at the house. And you would try to beat up your older brother, but we were all 2 years apart, so it was hard to beat your older brother up. So then you go after his friends. You try to fight his friends instead. So it was always some kind of good action going down, man. It was always always something happening at our house.
I love it. And now, are you the second oldest or are you the oldest?
No, so I'm the middle of the five.
Oh, so you're dead middle.
Dead middle. Yep.
Okay. And so the oldest one, like, who was it? Like, was it your dad or your parents that like got you into sports, or were you all kind of like into sports at a young age?
Yeah. So, I mean, our parents pretty much made us play sports because they didn't want us in the house. It was like, get outside. Yeah. Like it was way too much. So my mom would always just say, like, go outside and play. Like, you guys aren't sitting inside. You're not watching TV. You're not playing video games. Go outside, get your energy out. Like, I can't handle you guys in this house. And we lived in a small house. We all had bunk beds. So it was mayhem. So, it was all about, okay, get home, do your homework, get outside, have fun, play. And you grow up in a neighborhood with a bunch of kids, and, we didn't have like fences or anything. You just walked through each other's yards. You showed up at each other's houses. And that's how it was. So, and we played football, baseball, really everything in our backyard, but we didn't actually play a structured football until high school. So,
okay.
It was a lot of hockey. We grew up in Buffalo, New York, so we played a ton of hockey and a ton of baseball. And really, it was just all about playing different sports, competing against each other, and we just learned how to be athletes, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love it. And then 4 of you NFL, and then 1 of you baseball, right?
Yeah, the oldest brother never played football. He was smaller, I would say, I guess, in high school. He's probably 6'2", 165 pounds. Just went out his senior year. My brother was my second oldest brother was the starting quarterback. He threw him a pass. It hurt his hands, and he decided he wasn't going to play football anymore. So he ends up going to college and playing baseball and earning a full scholarship. But grew about 4 inches in college and put on about 60 pounds. And comes back and was like, man, I should have played tight end. Like, yeah, we kind of blew that opportunity.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, you have like a house of giants. Like, I'm like, oh, I can't wait. One day, like if I show up at Gronk Beach, I'm like, all of you, I'm like, I'm 5'7" on a good day, depending on gravity that day.
Man, yeah. So it's funny because like all the photos of us together, I look small. And so I get asked all like when people meet me, they're like, man, how are you so big? I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, like in all your photos, you look tiny. I'm like, yeah, I look small because I'm next to my brothers in every photo. So they, Rob, Gord, Dan, they got 5 inches on me for the most part. So I'm 6'2", played at 240 pounds, and I'm the small one in the family.
Yeah, that's incredible. Your mom did a really good job. I would have loved to know food bills back in the day, but luckily we're entrepreneurs, so we can make it. I love that, dude.
Yeah,
so good.
My mom was like a full-time chef, and also like a full-time Uber driver, I guess is what you'd say. I don't know. I mean, it really was like trying to get us to practice every day, to school, multiple teams. You got 5 kids, trying to feed us. We ate every single meal at home, or she packed every meal for us because we didn't have a lot of money, and we couldn't go to restaurants together. Just for her to control us at a restaurant was pretty much impossible. So we had to eat at home. I don't think
I would take the Gronks to a restaurant, or I'd have to rent the whole space out.
Yeah, man. So, between the having no money and also just, not being able to control us as kids, it just was never happening. So she used to use it as kind of like this incentive for us to behave for a month. And we'd actually go to Denny's, and there was the $1.99 Are You Out of Your Mind special. And once a month, if we all behaved, we didn't do anything really bad or get into any like massive fights, we'd be allowed to go. And like out of the full year, we might go once. And usually what would happen is like we get halfway there and my mom would turn around because we're all fighting in the car. So it was every year, like as I have kids now, I'm like, how did my parents possibly do this? And why? Like, why did you keep having kids? Like, it was such mayhem. And when you think about it too, like there was no cell phones either.
No.
It's like trying to like pick us up or like drive us to practice, or like she physically couldn't bring each and every one of us to every practice because it was impossible. We were playing multiple teams. There's 5 kids. So she'd actually have to like call the week before to the neighbor and be like, hey, or our coach, like, hey, can you pick my son up for this practice and drive him home? I can bring your kid next week, kind of thing. And it's like, that's so insane to even think about now.
It's so different now. I mean, like my daughter is 17. So when she got her license last year, I like hallelujah. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm not a cab driver anymore. I'm like, hey, you have a new job. You are now an Uber driver for your 5-year-old brother. I need you to go to the grocery store. It's payback time. Like, here we go. Yeah, dude, it's actually really nuts to think about. Like, hey, come home when the streetlights turn on. Like, just walk into Jimmy's house, like borrow sugar from the neighbor. Like, I remember we would play I grew up in New England, right? I actually was in Foxborough growing up. So back then everybody played hockey. So in the summer we would just play street hockey all day. And then we'd go in whoever's house and steal all their Cokes from their parents. And we would work out for like 10 hours and we would just down Coca-Colas. And we're like, oh, I wonder why I'm not a really good athlete right now. It's such a different world, dude. It's such a different world. So I love it. And then, so you went from that and then college. So football, high school, football, college. And then did you get drafted right out of college?
So I went into the draft. I went undrafted. I signed as an undrafted rookie. Same process as being drafted. You just don't get as much money.
Okay.
Yeah. So, within an hour after the draft ended, I got a call. I signed it with the Cowboys. And then it's the same process. You're going, into off-season training. You're going into summer training with all the other guys who did get drafted. And at that point, right into camp. And, the difference is you have a lot harder and less chance of making the team is what it comes down to. You don't get a nice signing bonus. You're kind of a one and done kind of thing. If you don't make it, it's probably your last chance you're ever going to have. So I knew that going into it. And, it was kind of this mentality of, there's no option for me at this point. Like all three of my other brothers got drafted. My younger brother went second round. And I was like, man, if I don't make this team, that's all I'm going to be asked for the rest of my life. Like, the whole family made it. What happened to you? So complete your mindset, man. Like, you can't have a mindset like that. People ask, like, did your brothers help you get to that level? I'm like, yeah, they did. Because if I didn't have three brothers that made it, I wouldn't have had that mindset. It would have been a lot easier to just say, man, like, this is tough. I wasn't drafted. It's not cut out for me. But there was no chance I could say that at that point. We had bloodlines that all made it. And, there was no excuse at that point not to. So mindset was, I was a different person. I was going to do anything and everything I possibly could to make that roster.
Yeah, man. I actually think, like, I've consumed a lot of your content. Like, we had the pleasure of, like, connecting. And then I was like, God, you're like my spirit animal, like from another mother. Like, I love you. But, like, the way that you view things and your tenacity and the way that you think about concepts and even the content that you put out, like, I love that whole, like, it's like, if it's up to be, it's up to me kind of mentality, right? Like, I'm in charge of my destiny. I control what I put into this. Was that something that came, like, through your childhood, or is that something you kind of found in college? Was there, like, a moment where that, like, switch flipped for you? Was it I'm the only one that didn't get drafted? Like, what was that like for you?
Man, I mean, I think it was just the way we were raised. I think you can see with all of our brothers, there's 5 boys, it's hard to see a family with 5 kids that are all successful. And our family is. I mean, a lot of people don't see it now, but my dad's been in business for 32 years. We all went into the business world afterwards. Rob's not done yet, but he's made a lot of really good business decisions already himself. But our parents taught us really the value of a dollar and the value of hard work at a young age. So nothing was ever just handed to us. At first, it was because my parents didn't have any money, but once they did, it was still the same way. If you wanted to go to college, it was, hey, cool, you can go to college, but you better get a scholarship or you better pay for it. And my dad, his whole thing was, I'll help you. If you want to get there, I'll give you a loan, but you're going to pay me back. So it was never, hey, here's the free car. It wasn't, there's no chance we get a full scholarship. We can get a free car. It was, hey, come to work for me, deliver treadmills and ellipticals on the weekend and buy your own car. That's just how it was. So with that, I mean, it's hard to do. And I have kids now and, I can give them the world. So I understand how hard it is now. But when you do that, you really teach them how to work for it. That you teach them the value of a dollar and what it takes to be successful. So I didn't know anything different. We had a paper route when I was 10. I was umpiring when I was 12. Yeah. So, at 15, I was working for my dad delivering treadmills. At 16, I was driving his trucks. And, at that point, it's like, I don't know anything different. All I know is, I have to do it. I have to get it done. I have to find a way to get it done. And, that's the mindset. You're going to find a way to do it right, or you're going to do it again. So, we learned at a young age, and I think that just really helped all of us be successful. Not even just in business. I think sports too. It all transfers over, and my parents just did a really good job of really teaching us that skill at a young age.
God, that, like, you want a one-liner for me? Like, I'll put that shit in a fortune cookie. Find a way to do it right, or you're going to do it again.
Man, that's the truth. And I've done it twice a lot of times, so I can't say I was perfect on that, but you learn quick.
Yeah, man, for sure. And then, because like I love learning about the timeline, right? So then you go to Dallas, right? How long were you at Dallas?
Yeah, so I was with the Cowboys for a year. Went into training camp the next year with them, got released, got signed by the Colts, played a season with the Colts, and week 7 tore my pec, had pec surgery, so I was out for the year. Came back from it, got traded in the offseason to the Broncos, and played with the Broncos for a year, and then had a 3-year contract. Contract was up. At that point, I signed with the Chargers, went into camp with them, high ankle sprain in camp, signed an injury settlement, and tried to come back from that, and had a tryout, ran a 40-yard dash on the 3rd step, ruptured my hamstring, and it was either have surgery and try to keep playing, or just walk away from the game and let it scar down and just live a normal life. So at that point, it was almost a blessing in disguise, man, because it's your identity. It's hard to walk away from. And for me, that finally was just kind of like, hey, you're good, man. It's time to go to the next step in your life.
Yeah, man. And what would you say? Like, and I actually have quite a few friends that played in the NFL, and I always love asking this question, and I'm always shocked, like, the answers I get. Like, for you, like, thinking back on that, like, career, like, what was one of the most challenging things about being like a professional football player?
So, everyone thinks it's like, hey, this is this fun game that you're playing. And like, at the end of the day, man, it's a job, and it's a job where, you don't, it's unlike any other. Every single thing is filmed, it's critiqued, it's watched, not even just by, one person. It's watched by millions of people who then talk trash about you if you don't have a good game. But it's also, it's not even just physical, the physical aspect of it's very challenging. But the mental aspects there as well. There's a lot of sleepless nights. One bad play, you can get cut. You can never play again. One injury, away from never playing again as well. But it was this kind of how I explain it to people. When I played, every time I went to the dentist, they'd be like, man, you got to wear a mouth guard. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, dude, all you're doing is grinding your teeth at night. And that was, I was so stressed out. I just grind and grind and grind. I sleep like 4 hours a night, because if I missed, if I came late, I guess 1 minute, I was going to get fined $1,000. And for me as a bubble player, I was probably going to get cut. So being late to practice, you just keep waking up throughout the night. I can't be late. That's all you're thinking about the play from the night before, grinding the hell out of my teeth. And, when I finally was done playing and I slept in for one day with no stress, no pressure, any of that, it was like, wow, this is a feeling I haven't felt in years. All that stopped, like the whole, like, grinding my teeth, all that was done. So it just shows you how much pressure is really on you, man. Like, it is a game, you do love the game, but at the end of the day, like, there's only one game a week. Yeah. And the rest of the week, it's a job, and it's a physical job where literally you're playing injured or hurt the whole time. And the whole name of the game is just staying healthy. How can I recover, get ready for the next week, and ball out again. So, man, it's challenging. It's for sure challenging. I don't know how guys play for like 10, 15 years, especially at a position where you get hit and you're taking hits every single day. Because, man, it's hard waking up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. every day, just hurting, and still just dragging yourself in there and just going at it each and every day, man. So, yeah, it's cool. At the end of the day, I'd never replace it. People are like, man, how can you complain about that? I'm like, I never complained about it. It was one of the best things that could ever happen to me. It was my identity. It's helped me so much after I've been done playing. And the money from it, even though I was the lowest paid player possible in the entire league, it still helped me leave with zero debt, with a good stack of money in the bank. I wasn't a millionaire. I didn't have millions of dollars. I wasn't set for life, even though I started for 3 different teams for 3 years. I got pension, I got 401k, I got all that, but I still got to work. I still have to have a whole career in front of me after that, but it set me up to then do what I wanted to do. I was able to take that money and invest it into a business and grow the business. And, without that money, it's hard. It's very hard to get money, and it's hard to take that step and put all that risk on something when you don't have it. So it was the biggest blessing I could ever had. I loved it. At the same time, it was the hardest job I'll ever have. That's for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I always think it's interesting, because it's weird. Like I didn't have a professional athlete bone in my body. Like all midget of me, I'm wider than I'm taller. Right. I was built to be a short fullback. Right. So I was like, oh, there's better things for my life. Right. Weightlifting was one of them. CrossFit was one, but it's the same thing for me. It's like, I was in the Marine Corps for 13 years. And if you ask me now, I'm like, I don't know why I did it. Would I ever do it again? Like from this point, no, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Like there's those moments, those experiences. And I was like, and like similar to like, what's it like? I'm like, well, until you're having to pour Tabasco in your eye to stay awake on a machine gun in the middle of the night so you and your friends don't get killed, it's kind of hard to understand. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I was like, but that's like one of the favorite memories I have from my life, is the fact that I'm here to tell you, and the story that comes from that, and the resiliency and the perspective, I think, was a big one for me. And so I get it, man. And
the people you meet, man. I mean, you're a team as well. And, those are the memories you remember forever. Is you remember those tough times, and you remember the people that you went through those tough times with. So those are the memories that I'll never forget, with the guys that I was just battling with, that were also, undrafted or just, making the team. And, you're sitting there on cut day, like, man, what do you think? What do you think? And those memories last forever, man. So when you go through tough times with tough people, you become friends for life.
Yeah, man, I love that. And also I have a question about that. So like I've actually worked with some professional teams as clients of mine. And so I've had this like behind the scenes thing. And one of the things that shocked me the most was how transactional in nature the entire thing is. It's like you on a piece of paper on a wall are just a pawn on a chessboard. But yet the way that it's portrayed to the world and the paradigm is like, oh, they're the greatest. We take care of them, and it's boom. And I was like, that's not how it really is. And so, when you think about that and the identity of like, I'm a professional football player, I'm an athlete, but yet at the same time, you kind of have to self-create that identity, because you're dispensable in their world. And so have you carried any of that over into now entrepreneurship, like how you lead a team, like how you build your company, how you create culture? Like, have you carried any of those lessons over, like good or bad, to kind of change what you've done with Ice Shaker?
Yeah, for sure. It took me a long time to do it too, which I wish I kind of sat back and thought about it more. But, I'm in all these amazing organizations. A football team isn't just the players in the locker room. There's a whole front office behind it. It's pretty impressive how they work and the operations behind it. But when you're a player, you don't think about it like that. You're there to do your job, and, you're there and you don't even think about the front office and all of the things behind the scenes that have to go down for a football game to happen. So, what I tried to do in business was I tried to replicate that feeling I had as a player. You walk into a locker room and everyone's there for one reason. They're there to be the best player they can and to win football games. And then you get into the business world and you find out really quickly that most people aren't there for any other reason than themselves and to, try to make a paycheck. And, they're not there to try their best to help the company win. They're there to just get by and get a paycheck. So the way to change that culture, though, is to kind of make it similar to a locker room. Get that same feeling. Make it so that everyone's included, everyone feels like they're a part of the team, and everyone knows how to win. So it took me at least 3 years to finally realize, like, hey, there's really no difference here. It's the same thing. Business and a team, the structure of it, it's the same thing. You just got to find a way to make it the same. You got to find a way to get everyone aligned and on the same page to want to win. You got to give them the tools and the structure to, know what it actually means to get to that next level and be successful and hit their goal. So that was a lot of that. It was on me, man. We started something from nothing. It just grew and grew and grew. I never, knew or been in like a corporate structure like that before to kind of know what it should be like and how to set goals for people. And it's just something that happened and just kept going. So I had to learn and kind of step back at different stages of the business and just say, hey, I can't be the player anymore. I have to be the coach at this point. I have to coach this guy. This is my assistant coach. We got to come together as a team. Let's just structure it the same way. Mm-hmm. And, once we did that, the culture completely changed. We found ways to incentivize people as a team instead of as individuals. And right when we did that, it was all about how can we work together to win as a company. And it was incredible once that happened. So, man, I wish I did it earlier, but anyone, like in any organization right now, if you're walking in and it doesn't feel like a team, or, like you're walking into a locker room and it doesn't feel like everyone's trying to win, you got to do something to change it. You got to find a way to realign everybody's goals so that when you walk in, you're like, yeah, man, I'm back. Like any level, it could be high school football, whatever it is. Everyone kind of knows that feeling when they walk into, a locker room or an office and everyone's there for the right reasons.
Yeah, man, I love that. That's I think every entrepreneur I know, myself included, through all the failures and the successes, have come to that lesson at some point where you get to invest in the human, and then that human becomes a part of the team. And I think like there's a lot of parallels, like, for those familiar with sports. It's like, one of the things that I know is like your whole life was basically set up for you to be a machine. You had access to the best food, to the best nutritionists, to the best coaches, to the best blank, 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 so you could perform at your best. And I think a lot of times I go into a lot of companies and it's like, it makes me feel like the Marine Corps again, where they expect us to do the job with like the worst shit possible. Like I have Air Force hand-me-downs 25 years later, and they're like, okay, there's 181,000 Marines in the entire Marine Corps and 6 million people in the rest of the armed forces. You have all their equipment from 25 years ago, and I want you to go be in the front. And we're like, okay, got it, right? But when you actually take the time to invest in that culture and that team and set them up to win, I think it also changes the level of investment that people have in the culture as well. So I love that. I love that, man. So I don't know this, and I never bothered looking into this because I've just known you as post Ice Shaker, right? Like I caught you after Ice Shaker was started, but like, where did the idea come from? Like, where did that happen? Like you're at the Chargers, you're there, you're kind of in there, you pull your hammy or your ankle sprain or whatever. Like, what was it? Was it something you were already thinking about? Did you just get struck with an idea? Like, where did the idea come from?
Yeah, for sure. So I was done playing. I was actually working with my wife on a business that she has called Everything Decorated. We were doing personalized gifts, and it was really successful. We were actually making more money doing that than I was in my NFL career. So it did really well. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't my passion. Like I didn't post about it. I wasn't on social. I didn't tell people what I did. When people asked, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of doing my thing. Everything's cool. And realize like, hey, at some point, like I got to get back into sports and fitness. Like that's where I belong. That's what I grew up doing. That's what I'm passionate about. So about 5 years after I retired from the NFL, I was working out, and man, I had a plastic shaker bottle. It was hot outside in Texas, and I get to the gym, it's sweating everywhere. I'm actually making like little sweat rings on the ground in between each set of bench. And I take a sip of it. It's warm. It smells awful. And I'm like, man, like there's got to be something better out there. So go home that day, and there was insulated bottles. People are like, there was insulated bottles, right? But there was none that had like a top that was big enough to pour supplements into. There's nothing to actually blend it. So you can get one with like a little tiny spout on it. You can take like a funnel and put powder into it. It's going to clump up, and then it's going to be impossible to clean. But yeah. So
before I had an ice shaker, I literally have hundreds of these funnels because I could never get supplements in a bottle.
Yeah. So there's, and even if you could, like a lot of people still do that. They put it into like the plastic, water bottles or whatever. But I just wanted something really that I could use all day, every day. What I was doing was I was taking something that was insulated, bringing it to work. Then I was running home to get the plastic shaker bottle to mix up the pre-workouts or BCAAs, whatever it was. And then I was changing, getting home, like using another cup. I'm like, man, like I'm such a simple guy. Like I just want one cup I can use all day, every day, like everywhere I go. And that was kind of the idea. Let's make one cup that I can use as a water bottle. I can bring to work, or I can bring it to the gym and I can mix powders in it. Or I could bring it on the airplane. I could toss it in the pool. I could do whatever with it. I can just sit at home. I could take the top off and use it as a wide mouth, cup. Whatever I needed, I could do it all in one cup. That was kind of the idea. So started it really passion for myself. Had had no idea where it would go, and had a game plan behind it. I had an email from my agent asking for current or former NFL players that might want to get on Shark Tank. So when I kind of started it, I was like, man, I'm going to go back to this email at some point. But first, I got to make a sweet product that I actually have some kind of proof of concept behind. And started at the upstairs of my house, side hustle, and worked for my wife. I'd come home and, I'd check the emails. I'd send out the product that sold. And on the weekends, I'd go to shows and, I'd try to sell as much as I could. And every minute I had of spare time, I was trying to work on the business, figure out little things, jump on YouTube. Like, how do I Photoshop this item? How do I rank up on Amazon? Like anything I could possibly do, I was trying to do. And it's so funny looking back at how bad it was at first, but that's kind of what you do at first, man. I spent no money on advertising. I was just trying to organically grow something and shipped it out of the upstairs of my house with no overhead. So it was all good. And about 3 months into it was when I applied for Shark Tank. I had about $25,000 in sales, and I was like, man, let's see what happens here, and was able to get through the submission round. And it was a big process leading into that. So when I pitched that 3 months into the company, they said, hey, the next time we record is in 3 months, in June. So I kind of had this 3 month window to sell as much product as I possibly could. So I had the 25 from the first 3 months. I was able to get it up to about 80,000 over the next 3 months and get on the show and put a whole game plan together to ask for $1 million valuation.
I love it. And one of the things I love the most is, didn't you watch like every episode and write down every question that they'd ever asked? Yeah.
So that was a huge blessing. I mean, I wasn't the first episode, first season, we were season 9. So I can go back and I was already a huge fan of the show. I probably already watched like 80% of them. So the 20% I didn't watch, I found, and I just watched everything in series and wrote down every question they had. So I knew the personalities of each and every shark. I knew the questions they asked. I knew the questions I couldn't answer off the top of my head, and I had to find out, some more information on, and I did, and I kind of memorized every single possible answer to every question they've ever asked in the past. And the big question mark was Alex Rodriguez, though. He'd never been on. He was a guest for that episode. They do tell you ahead of time that there's going to be a guest, and then once they solidify it, they do let you know who the guest is, so you can kind of do a little bit of homework on it. But the guy was, there was no information on him. Like, he was coming off his baseball career. He had A-Rod Corp. No one really knew what A-Rod Corp was. There was no information on it anywhere. So he was kind of a question mark. But besides that, I could answer any question that any of the other sharks had ever asked in the past.
I love it, man. Yeah, I think I have a lot of friends and companies of mine that have been on Shark Tank. I don't think people know how rigorous that is either. Just the submission process, the videos, the approval process, the filming. I mean, how long were you actually in the tank filming?
Yeah, so the due diligence to get there is rough. Like, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth, and it's a huge process. But going into the tank, they show the best 8 minutes or whatever it is, but you're in there. I was probably in there for, I would say, close to an hour.
Yeah.
45 minutes to an hour. It's hard to tell because time flies when you're, in a huge moment. But they're going to ask everything. Like, they didn't just invest and give me an offer. I mean, it's a real deal. I mean, they're going into season 10. They know exactly how it works. They know how much work it is to invest into a company. There's so much paperwork, due diligence, all that. And then, they still have to put a lot of time and effort in, either personally or, with their company that they hire to kind of help you. So there's a lot there. There's a ton there. So for them to just say oh, it's only $50,000, and for us, it was $75K per shark. Mark and Alex both put in $75K, but all the work and the time and all that goes with it, it's a lot, man. So if you just go and throw it at every single company that goes up there, you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and you're probably going to get burnt out pretty quick. So by season 10, they had it down. They were drilling me with every question possible. They knew what I did in high school. They knew my first jobs, all my jobs. They knew what my degree was. Why I didn't. I was actually committed to the University of Penn at first. I was going to Ivy League. Why didn't I go there? What was my decision behind that? All kinds of crazy questions. And it was man, these guys go pretty deep. They want to know who I am in my personality and how hard I'm really going to push this thing. So I was pretty impressed with the actual process. And at the end of the day, man, it's real money. it's their money and they're really sending it over. They're really investing in you and they're really putting their time and effort into it. So it all makes sense. But yeah, man, I would say a solid hour of really getting to know who I was as a person.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, as you did that, because you prepared a ton, right? You came through, you got close to $1 million. Like they gave you 150 for 15% or something.
Yeah. So we got $1 million valuation out of it.
Yeah. So what was your plan of like looking at that? You're like, all right, I've had $80,000 in sales. What was your positioning to be like, I have $1 million valuation?
That was the hardest part, right? But if you have a way to explain it, then they're gonna believe it, right? And as long as you can arguably, put some decent kind of argument out there, they can't deny it because you're so early on. You're 6 months in. We're profitable. We're making money. The proof of concept's there. What is it worth? It's so hard to tell. So it's worth whatever you can argue it's worth at that point. So I sat down with my dad and I was like, Dad, how do I get to $1 million? How do I get to $1 million on this? And he's like, well, if you value it at 5X and, based on the sales you've already had and you give yourself, a 20 times multiplier from this show in growth, that you're going to see over the next, 12 months from it, which we did, it would put you at this number. So I was like, hey, we explained it. So it all makes sense now. As long as you can explain it at that stage in a business, that's all you got, man, because there is absolutely no, and I asked this question to like Mark's advisors afterwards. I'm like, how do you guys value these companies? He's like, it's pretty much impossible, especially if it's super early on. I mean, you're taking a chance on the person at that point, 6 months in, the idea looks good. Maybe they have some patents. I didn't have any patents. I had nothing. But it was really like, hey, they had a good feeling about it. The product was making money. They thought it was, overall a decent idea. It reached all audiences. There's a big market for it. So, it kind of made sense at that point. But yeah, I would never, try to put an exact number on a company that's 6 months in business. I mean, it's impossible.
For sure. And so you didn't have a patent either. So you designed, created this product. So was it after Shark Tank, they helped you like protect it?
So, I mean, I've did everything myself afterwards. They definitely would help with guidance, but we came back and we have a lot of different patented products now. But at that time, it was such a simple product. There was nothing to patent. I mean, I literally took a regular cup and I put a shaker top on it. Like there was nothing there. We came back and, we redesigned the lid. We created a twist and agitator that no one else was doing. And we patented that feature. And then just the designs of everything as well is now patented. So there's a lot of IP on it now, but at that time it was super, super basic. It was more of a first to market play, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I'm an addict. Like for those listening, I've literally replaced every cup in my house with ice shakers once I got a hold of them because I found it years ago, but then I never bought one. Then somebody sent me one and I was hooked. And then I met you and I'm like, I'm really fucking hooked now. I'm in. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. You have pink. I'll take it. We're good. I'll use it every single day. Now I just spread that shit everywhere.
Hey, we got every color. I think we have over 20, maybe 30 different variations at one point, but, yeah, I mean, you could use it for everything. And that was the idea. The idea really for me was one, we have a lot of customers that have like 20 of them. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even have 20. So the whole idea was to have one, but then you start, people want one for work, want one from house, want one to make a protein shake in, want one just for water. I'm like, that definitely works for me. And we've came out with other bottles too. So it's no longer just a shaker bottle. We have our jug coming. So I have a half gallon, full gallon jug as well. So I was using it today, but it should be here next week is what it's looking like. So super pumped to get those in as well. But we have everything: tumblers, cups, shakers, jugs at this point.
And then what year did you launch Ice Shaker?
So we launched, I mean, realistically, the first sales were January 2017. Okay. So we're going into year 6.
Okay, cool. And like to this point now, like, have you noticed now, not even noticed, right? But like, I feel like the last 2 years has been a really big magnifying glass on business for people, right? Entrepreneurship, the state of the world, everything else. Like to this point, like what has been like one of the biggest challenges that you've come up against that you've overcame when it comes to Ice Shaker?
Myself is what I say.
Yeah. I love that, man.
This is really what happened was, I'm coming out of the NFL. I'm super competitive. Think of this idea. I think it's the best idea in the world. I want to do every single thing myself. I want to control the marketing. I want to control the website. I want to, ship the product, make sure it's perfect. I want to, do the customer service and make sure the customers are hearing from me and they're getting everything they need to know. And at the end of the day, I couldn't grow. I couldn't scale. It was impossible to. And I would then bring in people to help me. And then, I did a terrible job of first off training them. And then I would never truly delegate the responsibility to them. So I bring them in. Hey, you're here for marketing, but I'd still sit there and do the marketing. And all it did was it just made people frustrated at the end of the day. And I didn't see that. I saw it as, why am I not doing it? Why am I making someone else do it when I can do it myself? Why it almost felt bad for doing it. Like, hey, like, why would I do this to him? I feel bad. Like I need to be doing that. So at the end of the day, what I realized was that, the pandemic hit. I couldn't do everything myself. I couldn't even be there in person. We had to do split shifts because, the whole rules with, staying 6 feet apart and not too many people in a building and all that stuff. So at that point, I physically couldn't be there. And I started delegating the responsibilities because I had to. And, I had 3 kids at home and it was absolute mayhem. And when I did that, it was like the response was the exact opposite of what I thought. I almost felt like I was doing a disservice making them do this work. But when I started giving them the responsibilities and they were doing the work, they were appreciative. They're like, man, this is awesome. Like, I would love to do this. Like, I'd love to have that responsibility and take care of that. And, they felt like they were a part of the team at that point and that they could actually make decisions that affected the company and could help us grow. So it was a mind opener. And I was like, man, I've been just holding us back because I can work and I can work a lot. And I put in 90-hour weeks, probably every single week for the first 2-3 years of iShaker. And that you think you're doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, at first, maybe it helps because you don't have a lot of cash flow and you got to kind of figure things out. But after that, once you can, hire as fast as you can and hire, delegate, train well, put the structure in place, have the expectations set from day one, and you're going to grow and you're going to scale. So that was my biggest mistake by far was, just me not realizing that if you want to win, you got to have a team. It's not a one-man sport. Business is the same way as athletics. You win as a team. There's no I in team. And once I finally realized that, our sales and our team and everything has just went to the next level.
Yeah, even for the people, because get it out of your fucking head. Well, what about Tiger Woods? I'm like, you should see their team too. Their teams are huge. You just don't see them on the course with them, but they are huge. I love that. Yeah,
you can't do it yourself. I mean, even just I'm sure he has a massive just PR team just to handle all that stuff that comes in. I mean, there's so many teams behind the scenes so that he can focus on what he does best, and that's playing golf.
Well, and it sounds like too, like even that distinction even deepens what you said earlier about creating that culture. Like it gives people responsibility and ownership and meaning. And then when you set the expectation and you help nurture to the results, then it creates that deeper team culture to where they're all invested in the outcome and the result, not just like, how do I get mine?
Exactly. And that's what happens when you give them that responsibility.
Now, I have a question about that, and I don't ask many people this, but I'm always innately curious. Like, as a team guy, right? Like, as a team guy, like, that somebody's heart 9 out of 10 times is way more important than their skill set, right? And so when you're hiring, when you're thinking for team, like, do you hire for team? Do you hire for culture? Do you try to find people that match the team dynamics, or do you hire for skill set? Like, how do you go about that?
Man, I hire by really a lot of it's feel, man. Like if I have someone in the room and I'm like, this person is very talented, but there's no chance I could sit next to them all day, every day and work with them, I'm not going to bring them in because I'm not even going to do that to my own team. Mm-hmm. Like if that person doesn't fit, I don't care if I'm not working with them. My other guy has to work with them or other girl. And if I can't stand them, it's just not going to work out. It's not going to fit into the culture. So that's kind of how we look at it. I think for the most part, you can you can train someone to do it the right way. It's going to take time. You got to put the effort into it. You got to have the structure and the game plan set out. But for the most part, most of the time, as long as they have the right personality, they're going to be able to do the job that you want them to do. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been, if that personality isn't right and it's not a good fit, that kills everything else, man. I mean, if anyone's miserable in the business, that's going to kill every single, it doesn't even matter if it's a completely different position, and even if you don't see that person, at some point that's going to affect you in some way. So we just try to avoid that as much as possible. And that's kind of been my strategy with hiring. And I was not good at hiring. I can tell you that. I was the person that would just go, hey, I can't trust anyone. I tried to hire every family and friend possible because, I didn't realize that, there's great people out there that want to work for great companies as well. And, it took me a while to also become somewhat decent at hiring. I still don't think I'm the greatest at it.
Yeah, man. I love it. I think like when I hear and I'm trying to distill this down, what I really hear under everything is like this culture and this humanity. It's like team, like literally team is like the essence of everything that you do. How well do we relate? How do we support? Like, I remember, and I can only relate here, but like I tell people, like, they're like, what was the Marine Corps like? I was like, well, imagine 60 dudes who hate every ounce of their existence in a moment, but share one common goal. And it's, we have to accomplish the mission. So we'll love each other through it. Even though we don't necessarily like what we're in, you have this shared moment where even when it sucks, or when the world shuts down, or when production sucks, or something happens, that we can come together as a team and kind of forge forward with that. So I love that, man. I think it's incredible. So what's the vision for Ice Shaker? Like, where do you want to go? Like, what's next? Like, I mean, we're early kind of, but you've got so much experience built into this, but like, what's the 5-10 year vision?
Yeah, man. If you asked me 2 years ago, there was none. So we're
making improvements
big time. No. And that's really what helped take us to that next level as well, is if you have a path and you have a game plan, you're going to be successful. You're going to know how to also adapt too, if you need to. So we have a really good game plan. Our goal every year is at least 30% growth. Once we put this game plan in place and we put the steps in place to get there, we've hit that goal every single month. We've exceeded that now every month for the years that since we put that in. So it continues to grow this year as well on the same pace. And that's what it took. It took to, let's put this game plan in place. If we're not hitting it, how do we adjust? If we are hitting it, how do we continue to get better month over month? Because as you keep growing, man, it doesn't always get easier to keep that growth going. So, it's hard, and we've found a way to continue it. And, the game plan really, we have a 5-year window where we think we can grow 30% every year and get to, a valuation of 100 million. That's really what our goal is at this point.
Awesome. And then what would you say, like, thinking about from like when you didn't have the clarity, right? And you didn't know where you were going, and you're like, okay, now you have it. Like, what do you think is like one of the biggest drivers for that growth to happen as consistently as it is when there's so many uncontrollable variables outside of your plan?
It's just, man, it's sticking to the plan is what it comes down to. You have to have the benchmarks, and we go back and we look at the plan, and it's every single week, we have a call sheet, and, weekly we're following up. We have quarterly milestones, and we have yearly milestones. So, if the first quarter goes by and we look back and say, man, we didn't hit any of these, what happened? We're able to adjust and fix it. A lot of things do happen. We run out of stock. Right now we're out of our best-selling bottle. We're having supply issues. We're changing suppliers. All kinds of things are happening. So it just doesn't give us an excuse. It just gives us a reason to pivot and try something different, because at the end of the day, we might be out of our bestseller, but there's a lot of other bottles in our warehouse that we can still sell. So, let's sit down. Let's have a chat about it. Hey, we're stuck on this bottle. Usually we hit the fitness market with this one. But, we got 40,000 of these in stock. So how do we move these? What's the game plan for this month? How do we pivot into that? And this happened to us in the past. I mean, we're a small company still. So we could fit 120,000 bottles in our warehouse. But, when a big company comes in and orders 10,000 of your bestseller, I'm not saying no to it. So at that point, it's all about just pivoting, adjusting, new game plan. And really, I mean, the overall game plan stays the same, but how do we get into different markets and kind of pivot that way? So it's been good, man. If you don't have that plan, it's kind of like, I guess we're doing all right, or, things happen. So, we ran out of our best seller, but when you do have that game plan, you have those numbers to hit. It gives someone something to reach out to. I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen it all the time. Like you can pay someone as much as you want, but if you don't have goals in place for them, they're not going to be happy. Yep. And that's kind of what we've seen as well. But when we set milestones, you set goals and you hit them, that's when people are actually satisfied. And that's what I call winning for me, is when my entire team hits all their goals.
I love that, man. I mean, like, I love hearing you talk and like listening and hearing all the parts of culture and team and meaning and humanity, like that's embodied in even how you speak. Like you nailed it. Like all too often it's like, yeah, anybody can collect a paycheck, but paychecks don't make people happy. They have to feel like they belong. They have to feel like they're part of something. And like really every time I ask you a question, it comes down to that. And I love how like tattooed into your essence it is, because it's just the mark of like you living and embodying what it is. I absolutely love that. I love that. So I have a very important question. Where are the best wings in the world?
Oh man, I got to take the hoodie off for this one.
I know where the gun show's out, but I got to know, where are they? Because I've eaten at every wing spot in Buffalo, because I had a thing with wings, and then I had a client in Buffalo. You would know the client, but I can't say it on here. And I was coming to Buffalo twice a month, and I was like, all right. And I swear I would be in the same office, and two people get into a fight about the best wings, and like it would get bloody.
Okay.
Where are the best wings in Buffalo?
I got you on this one, man. So growing up, before this other place was around, my dad would play baseball, like softball, and then we go to Elmo's after, and Elmo's was legit. Like the wings were always massive, they were crispy, like they were money. Later on, they opened the Amherst Ale House, and I've always been a huge fan. So they won some awards. They have like some Crown Royal like barbecue wings, and they also have like some like the chicken finger subs. Like man, like he has a stinger where it's like a steak and chicken finger sub all in one. I'm like, man, when I go back to Buffalo, it's not good for my weight. I can tell you that. I usually put on like 5 to 10 pounds, but it's the only place in the world that you can get food like that. Even the pizza, man, the pizza's different too. Like in Texas here, you can't get like a mom and pop pizza. Like you're going to like a Jets or like a Domino's, Pizza Hut, whatever. But in Buffalo, it's not like that. Like every corner, there's there's a pizza shop that isn't a chain. It's, someone, it's a family owned kind of deal. So grew up eating pizza like that, man. And it's that and the blue cheese and the wings, just a whole different world.
I was going to ask, and here's what's funny. I was a ranch guy, and then I actually ordered blue cheese in Buffalo, and it changed my entire perception of blue cheese. And I was like, oh, so this is basically the first time I've ever actually eaten blue cheese, because everything else was dog shit. Like this is incredible. And now I eat blue cheese all the time, and I'm like a snob because I always compare it to Buffalo.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah, you can't buy it out of like a salad dressing bottle. Like it's not even possible. They had Rudy's blue cheese was huge when I was growing up, and we used to buy like the huge tubs of it. They were a local bar, but then they'd also sell it at the grocery store, and that stuff was like crack at our house, man. You got to dip your pizza in it. You got to dip the wings in it, like everything. The celery, the carrots, everything you dip in blue cheese. But man, I haven't had that. Haven't had it in years. That's for sure.
Don't worry. Christmas, I will get you some Rudy. I'm going to show up to the office in Texas with gel blasters and Rudy's blue cheese.
Yeah, man. You can get it shipped in now. There's a lot of stuff. Man, I was told, so it's a pretty cool story. I was with the Colts, and the players were like, they played in Buffalo previously, and they loved the pizza so much that they would actually buy it frozen and get it shipped to them, and then they make it themselves at the house. And I'm like, dude, I didn't even know that was possible, that you can do that. But they'll call up. I think it was Lenovo's maybe in Buffalo that was doing it, or I don't remember what place they were going to, but they were having frozen pizza sent in because they're like, dude, I can't get anything like this anywhere else.
It's so awesome, man. I mean, I'm that guy though. I feel like all food deserves a condiment. Like I have to have a condiment with every meal. Like I got to dip it in, I got to put it on. And mayonnaise, like when I retire, I'm going to be a mayonnaise sommelier. That's my job. Like when I retire, I have like 80 mayonnaises in my house. I order them from Japan and Netherlands. And like some of the best mayonnaise in my life was like literally in Amsterdam, because when you get French fries, they serve it with mayonnaise. And wow. And so then you start to like taste it. And so blue cheese is up there for me too. It's up there for me too.
Have you tried this? This one stood out to me. I went to Jake's the other day, I think it's called, here in Texas. And when you get the sweet potato fries, they give you like a marshmallow dip.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That sounds legitimate.
That was next level. Oh
my God. Everyone's like, why do you guys work out so much? I'm like, so we can eat this food. That's why I work out so much, because like that sweet potatoes and marshmallow dip sounds like a diabetic coma and happiness at the same time. Like legitimately.
It was intense, man.
I love it. So I always like to ask a couple rapid fires at the end, because I think there's some stuff. So like now, entrepreneurship, business, what is one of the most impactful books you've ever read that's helped you as an entrepreneur or in business?
Man, the last book I probably read, I read the book. I read Steve Madden's book. It's probably the last one I read. I had him on my podcast, and great story. And it's great because he also starts it off with the fact that, you know, he gives all the credit to his team, which was pretty cool to see. Before that, I would say Grit, the book Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Yep.
Just eye-opening, man. Just the fact that you don't have to be the smart. I mean, there's really no correlation. Like it didn't matter if you're the smartest. Really, there was no trait that you could really put on it besides what she called grit. Like just actually wanting to get it done. You know, those were the people that were successful. Like it didn't matter how smart they were, their background, any of that stuff. Like after all the studies, it was like these people just wanted to do it. They wanted to get the job done, and they found a way to do it, which is like, it's just so eye-opening. You don't have to come from a certain background or, you know, have the most talent in the world. You don't have to be the smartest person. You just gotta want to do it and do it well and do it to the best of your ability. And it was so cool to see. I know a lot of it was based around like Navy SEALs and like, you know, how do they get through that training? It wasn't the best athlete, or, you know, it was a guy who wanted it the most. So that was definitely an impactful book that I read.
Yeah, they even used that in the selection process. Some of my best friends were on the teams, and, you know, you can be the number one performer on the teams, and they'll take the guy with the bigger heart over the number one performer every single time. Every single time. I love that. Now, this is one of my favorite ones. What do people never ask you but wish that they did?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I don't know. I don't think I've ever had that question asked.
I was like, I'm even thinking about our podcast. I'm like, damn it. I asked him like, man, did we really have to talk about the NFL that much? I'm like, all right, the story arc was like really good. I'm like, oh, but there's like a better one. So I'm going to ask you one now. Let me ask you this one. I'm the most excited to hear you answer this question out of anybody, because your whole story, your brothers, your everything. So I've asked this to only two other people on my podcast. If you could combine two animals to be your spirit animals, what would they be and why?
Man, we're going hard on these. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough call too. I don't study my animals that well. I mean, I would say my traits. You know, just for me, it's just consistency, always showing up. You know, always putting that work in. It's kind of, I don't know. I think of like the honey badger. Of just
yes, I could totally see honey badger for you, bro. Yes, like
that dude's just going hard. Like I go to the zoo. This dude's going like pacing full speed all day, every single day, like just going ham. And I'm like, wow, that is impressive. And then people, you know, will be like, yo, how do you do it? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you don't stop. Like it's, you know, you're emailing me at 5 a.m. and I'm getting email at midnight the same day. Like, you know, what's wrong with you? But that mixed with, I don't know. I don't know what to mix it with though. That's the next level right there. What do you mix it with?
I answered. I wanted to be a bald eagle and an orca whale because I wanted to be a master of both domains.
Nice.
And so, yeah, somebody asked me this question like 3 years ago, man, and it broke my brain. And I literally we got done with the show and I gave the answer, I thought about it for weeks, like weeks.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, that's a question you got to think about, man, because I don't know my animals that well either. So I think honey bat. I think there's probably at some point a mythical creature named Gronkowski that's going to end up in some Urban Dictionary anyways, because you guys are bred a little bit differently. So it might just be honey badger and Gronk like together. Yeah.
We can make that a thing, man. Like unicorns, rainbows, Gronk. Like Gronk can be some mythical creature. We'll come up with a logo at some point. We'll launch a new supplement. We'll call it Gronk. And we'll just call it a day. We'll make it a spirit animal, bro.
Yeah.
I love it. So one last question, and this one's not as challenging, but I always like to ask this. So I have this concept called tattoo wisdom, and I'm like, imagine that for the last 59 minutes, nobody heard this episode. They didn't hear any of it, and they just picked it up at this point. And you have this last minute to tattoo anything on their soul that they'll take with them forever, that they can remember, that they should think about, that is really, really important. What is the tattoo wisdom that you would give everybody listening?
Yeah, I'd like that. People always ask me like, hey, how did you get into entrepreneurship? You know, what's your best advice? So I always tell them, chase what you're passionate about. You know, that's what I did. You know, I was passionate about sports, fitness, going to the gym, and then find a way to, make money on it, make a living off of it. And, for me, I didn't think I'd ever be selling a shaker bottle. I was just super passionate about going to the gym. I loved it so much. I talked about it. I posted about it. That was all I was doing. And I found a way then to make a living, being able to go to the gym or sell a bottle that has, that's being used in the gym. So if you don't love it, at some point you're going to give up on it. It doesn't matter how much money you're making. I can tell you, day one, we brought in the bottles, 10,000 bottles. Half of them were defective. I sat upstairs in my house for 3 months with my father-in-law, changing out every single lid on the bottles before we shipped them out. So at that point, like I said before, we were making a lot of money with my wife's business. I didn't have to do it. I did it because I was super passionate about it. I wasn't going to let it fail because I love doing it. So if you don't love doing it, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, how much money you're making off of it. You're not passionate about it. You're gonna fail. You're gonna give up on it at some point. So pick something you love doing. Kind of become an expert at it, and start it as a side hustle until it grows big enough to go all in on it.
So good. Such profound wisdom, and so many levels of depth in that answer that would take a while to unpack. I couldn't think of a better way. So. For everybody listening, by the way, not only is he on the podcast, but I'm a customer as well. And I had a lot of them even before I emailed him. But they have my pink, you can't get this one unless you come to our events anyways, but get one anyways. So here's what I recommend everybody do. Number one, and I'm going to give Chris a little props. I don't consume much content at all. It's one of my rules, but Chris's Instagram is extremely inspiring. He's putting out nuggets, wisdom, trolling his brothers. But what I love, man, is I love your heart. I really love the embodiment of like everything that you've said on this show and everything that we've ever talked about. I feel like you're a walking example of like you embody it all the way. And I feel like you're just constantly out there giving and serving and like really helping everybody play team. And so for everybody listening, I'll make this easy for you. If you want a link to Chris's Instagram, just DM me. I will send it to you personally, or you just go find him. There's not many Gronkowskis in the world. So Chris Gronkowski on Instagram is not the most difficult thing to find. And then definitely check out Ice Shaker. This is my favorite one, by the way, and you can fit a whole bottle of wine in it, just in case you didn't know that. So just in case you're on the road or you want to smuggle something in, it fits in the bottle, but we absolutely love these things. And so make sure you check out Ice Shakers as well. And Chris, any parting words of wisdom, anything you want to leave everybody with that we haven't covered?
That was a good show, man. No, I appreciate you having me on today.
Brother,
please.
First Amendment.
Yeah, man. Yeah, check out my social. Drop me a line. Hit me up with a comment. If you listen to the show, let me know. Would love to hear what you liked about it. And if you have any questions, you want to know more, feel free to DM me. Ask questions on my comments. I love replying back to questions. So I love engaging with my audience, and that's one of my favorite things to do is answer back to questions. So please hit me up.
Yeah, I love it. So everybody, you literally now have a permission slip to slide into Gronk's DMs, and it's completely okay. So hit him up, slide in. And full disclaimer, George Bryant Enterprises has no control over the unsolicited messages you're going to get, but I will leave that up to you and them. But everybody, guys, make sure you check out Chris. Go to his Instagram, check out Ice Shaker. And as always, I will either see you in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs. But either way, we are out. So Chris, thanks for being here, man. And everybody, have a good day.